This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So last week we dedicated the 5 o'clock teleconference to Divrei Chizuk, and truthfully we all still need Chizuk, but life goes on and we're getting ready for Pesach, and now is crunch time. About 2.5 weeks to Pesach, and many for the first time find themselves in a situation where they're going to be making Pesach for themselves. There's no option going to a hotel, going to a program, going to the in-laws, going to your parents. So we're all compelled, if we haven't done this before, to make our own Pesach. So let's begin just speaking about some of the halachos. Obviously, just for starters, I'm sure everybody sees various sheets or hears psakim from a number of different rabbanim, and everybody has their own mahalach. We're going to try to keep, especially this year, to the Ikar Hadin. There are going to be some chumras of Pesach that we're going to try to observe as every year, and others maybe we'll reserve for a different, more ideal situation. Okay, so the basic rule of preparing the house for Pesach, and before we even start, just a very common shaila now is that people are concerned about is most people typically are makbid to eat hand matzah, not machine matzah, especially for the Sidarim. And many are worried, well, maybe this year I should have machine matzah, maybe they're more sanitary, maybe they'll be cleaner, maybe less a chance of transmission of germs, but some are worried the hand matzah are baked in the more Haimisha communities, it's more close-knit, maybe the people weren't as careful. So the first thing you need to know is, don't worry about it, because most matzah has been baked ready for many months. So it's most of the matzah that's available has predated this whole the challenge by a number of months. There's nothing to even discuss. But for those of a Hasidic background, which is most people, in terms of minhag, most people come from Hasidim, probably about 90%. There are very few people who don't have Hasidic blood. And by the Hasidim, or anybody who has any Hasidic blood, the inyan of hand matzah is very important. There's a statement of the Divrei Chaim, where anybody who has any adherence to Hasidic custom will not really even hear of partaking of machine matzah, and there's really nothing to worry about. Practically all the hand matzah has predated this whole thing. Okay, so let's start with just a general principle. The general principle of Kashering is 3 words. The Gemara says, "Kaboiloi kach poltoi." It's the Gemara Mesachim Daf Lamed Amud Beis. The way something absorbs is the way it ejects it. That means the way we're going to remove any absorbed taste of chametz is the manner in which that absorbed taste has been absorbed in the first place. So therefore we have to know how did the item that we're dealing with absorb the chametz, and then we can figure out how to kasher it. And basically there are 3 processes of kashering. There's hagala. Hagala is burning up the iser or kashering the iser with boiling water. There's hagala. And anything that became chametz through cooking with water will require hagala. There's something called libun kal, which is burning something up in a light way. And libun kal is when you heat something up in a fire until the heat is absorbed through and through the kli. That could be determined by if something, a piece of paper, touches the utensil, it will burn. And then there's something called libun gamor. Libun gamor is where something becomes red hot, where sparks come out of it. And something which is heated up without the agent of water, just directly on the fire, will require, I'm going to mute because there's a little bit of noise.
All participants are muted.
So something which is heated up on the fire without the agent of water will require libun. Okay, so let's start min hakal el hakaved. Let's start with something, the most innocuous things. Many people are not up to cleaning their, kashering their kitchens yet, but they are up to buying food. That's where I'm up to. So you want to have a place to put your food, namely the freezer or the refrigerator. Now, luckily, people do not use the refrigerator or the freezer through heat. You're not putting hot food in there. And therefore, no hagala is required in the fridge or freezer. You just have to clean it and wash it thoroughly. And the minhag is to line the refrigerator or the freezer as well. Some recommend that there should be some perforations in the lining, so to allow for air circulation. But the point is that no hagala is needed in the fridge or the freezer. You just clean it out well, obviously with water. You want to use a detergent, a Windex, something like that, and then you line it and you're good to go. Then you can put all your Pesach Dika food there. Fine. Now we're going to talk about an interesting halacha, which it's kedai to be aware of. And that is, even before we get up to Hagala, there are drinking utensils, things that we drink with the whole year, but we don't use it for hot. For example, the Kiddush cup, the cups that we're going to be using for Leil Seder. So one would think, we just said, you only need to kasher something the way it was used. So if my drinking cups were used for cold, I don't need to kasher at all. So here comes what is called minhag Ashkenaz. This is brought in the Ramasim and Tafnon Aleph Sevav, and that is we have a chumrah. The chumrah is that we are noheg to do hagala on all drinking equipment, even if it is only used for cold, let's say our Kiddush cups. And the reason we do that is because you never know, maybe it was used for hot, maybe it was accidentally rinsed in the sink, or maybe some bread soaked in it for 24 hours. But whatever the reason is, that's the minhag. Minhag Yisrael is, minhag Ashkenaz is. If you're a Sephardi, it's a different story, but Ashkenazim, our noyeg, we do hagala on our Kiddush cups. It's important to know, because I'm assuming we're all going to be home this year, or most of us are going to be home, and you're going to want to use your kaisais for Pesach, for the Dalet kaisais. So your regular cups you use the whole year, so you think, let me just rinse them, let me just wash them. No, we don't do that. We kasher them. So what are you going to do? This is how you kasher. You clean it out, you wait 24 hours, and then you put it in a boiling pot of water, and you let the water boil, and then they're good to go. And away we go. That's how you kasher your kaisais for the Shabbos kaisais. That's how you're going to kasher them for Pesach. Okay, so that's easy. We spoke about the fridge and freezer. We spoke about your cups for Pesach. Now let's move on to something a little bit more complex. Now let's set forth the rule. There are certain materials that we do not kasher for Pesach. Now I'll tell you some of the trade secrets. In general, I follow the CRC guidelines. However, there are a number of exceptions. So don't say, well, the rabbi follows CRC, so I'm just going to go to the CRC website. You're certainly invited to do that. There are things that I don't follow. For example, plastic. Our minhag, we follow Rav Moshe, that we do not kasher plastic for Pesach. Now, where does that come into be? One of the most common questions I'm getting, this is the most common question, do I need a new urn for Pesach? The answer, I'm sorry, is yes. We do use a new urn for Pesach. So it might be a hardship for this year, but once you get it, you have it for all future Pesachs. In general, many people tell me they look at their regular year-round urn, they open it up, it's full of rust on the inside, so that's stama health hazard. You don't want to have rusty metal that you're drinking out of every morning or every Shabbos. So anyway, sometimes it's kedai to get a new urn. But even if your urn's in good shape, you should get a new urn for Pesach. The reason is as follows. Even though we kasher metal for Pesach, we do not kasher plastic. So so you say, why do I have to kasher my urn? I don't cook in my urn. So here's the reason why we get a new urn for Pesach. There's something called nitzuk. Nitzuk is a flow. Now, let's say you have oatmeal in a bowl, and you turn on your urn, and you unleash some hot water from the urn. You open up the tap of the urn, and the hot water is spilling out of the urn into the bowl. So fine, what's the problem? The oatmeal is not touching the urn. So there's something called nitzuk. Nitzuk is a continuous flow. When hot water continuously flows into a bowl, if the bowl has oatmeal in it, it's considered as if the oatmeal is now attached to the urn through the flow of water, and then it renders the urn chametz. And we do not kasher plastic. Very often the spigot is plastic, the opening is plastic or rubber, and therefore we don't kasher it for Pesach. It's a chumrah de Pesach. If someone is a Baal Tshuva or someone cannot afford it, okay, you could kasher it. But even under the circumstances, we're going to say even for this year, you should have a separate Pesach urn. Okay, so that's for your urn. Similarly, a few people have asked about Poland spring machines. Poland spring machines like this. The cold water is fine. You just clean the cold spigot, clean it well, clean it with some kind of detergent perhaps, and the clean water is good to go. However, the hot water, we're not going to use for the same reason we get a new urn, and that's because we're not going to kosher plastic for Pesach. So just cover up the hot spigot of the Poland spring machine with some kind of silver foil, or just make a siman that you're not using the hot, but the cold you could use. People want to know about water for Pesach. All water is good for Pesach. Okay, so that's with plastic. Here are some materials that we do not kosher: china, pottery, earthenware, cement, concrete, enameled pots. We do not kosher for Pesach. Minog Ashkenaz is we don't kosher glass. We don't kosher crystal. There is one exception, and that is a glass stovetop. Again, we mentioned there is a difference of opinion regarding plastic. Our position is we do not kosher plastic for Pesach. So now let's talk about probably the most important need, or one of the most important needs, a stovetop. Okay, we're going to talk now about a stovetop and a warming drawer, and then we'll continue tomorrow, but we're making good progress. A stovetop. The most common type of stovetop is a metal grate, which is over open flame. Usually the surface underneath is porcelain or enamel or metal. Other people have electric coils instead of an open flame, or have a glass surface covering the electric coil. So even though we said that we don't kosher glass, this is the exception. The glass stovetop, we will allow kashering. Some of the popular brands for this are called Corning or Saran. Fine. So this is how we're going to kosher the stovetop. You ready? It's very easy. Somebody asked me a shayla today. I was able to give them basically a one-line text. Here we go. We're about to kosher our stovetop. If you're listening live, remember this. We're going to try to post this so that everybody could watch it later to review it. All parts of the stovetop need to be thoroughly cleaned. So if there's any residual food, scrape it off. You want to clean the surface, the catch tray. So after it's cleaned, you wait 24 hours. The reason you're going to wait 24 hours is this is not libun gamar. If it would be libun gamar is going to be like a self-cleaning oven. A self-cleaning oven, technically, you don't really have to clean the oven first. You just let the self-clean burn everything out. But this is not libun gamar. Maybe it's libun kal, or less than that. So then, you've cleaned everything well. You've waited 24 hours. Then you turn the fire or the coil up to the maximum for at least 30 minutes. Now, you're going to put a pot of hot water, you're going to put a pot of water on top of the stovetop. The purpose of this pot of water is it's going to spread the fire to the maximum surface area of the stovetop. Now, for an electric stovetop that's not covered with glass, you could leave the coils burning for 15 minutes. But for a typical stovetop with a metal grate, you're going to put a pot of hot water on top, and you're going to let it burn for 30 minutes. And you're good to go. Your stovetop is kosher lePesach. So basically it's 3 steps. Clean, wait 24 hours, let it burn for 30 minutes with a pot of water on top. Again, the pot of water will spread the fire to the maximum surface area. Once you did that, you're going to cover the following areas with something, the best with foil. You're going to cover the knobs, the catch trays, and all the areas in between the burners with foil. You're going to cover the areas behind the burners, like say the wall behind the stovetop. You're going to cover with silver foil or something in case the pot that you cook on Pesach, it touches the wall, which may have some absorbed taste of chametz. So that's the stovetop. Again, 3 easy steps. Clean, wait 24 hours, and let the fire burn for 30 minutes with a pot on top. Okay, warming drawers. So this is an interesting leniency. Basically, there are 2 ways to kosher a warming drawer. The best way is you get a sterno can and light it. Okay, you didn't hear this from me, but this is how you're going to do it. Okay, don't tell the fire department that this was what was advised, but this is the best way to kosher. You get a sterno can, you light it. Use a can fueled with ethanol or methanol. Don't use what is called wicked cans that use diethylene glycol. I can't say I know what that is, but a typical sterno can. You let it burn in the warming drawer for 2 hours. Now leave the drawer slightly open, slightly ajar, to allow some air to get in for it to be able to burn. In 2 hours, it will get as hot as it usually gets, and here we're using the principle of kiboiloi kach paltai. That's how it absorbed the heat, that's how it's going to get out. You let it burn for 2 hours. Again, you have to first clean it out, and you have to wait 24 hours, like all kashering. So again, you're going to clean it out, A. B, you're going to wait 24 hours. C, you're going to let the sterno can burn for 2 hours. However, I just heard from Rabbi Shmuel first this afternoon that instead of that, you could actually put in a pot of water, an aluminum pan of water, and turn the warming drawer onto the highest and let it go for 1 hour, and that's also a valid way to kasher the warming drawer. Okay, so today we discussed a number of important halachas. We discussed the basic principle of kiboiloi kach paltai. We discussed how to clean your fridge and freezer. We discussed the kalim, your drinking kalim, in other words, your bechers. You want to kasher your bechers. We discussed materials that cannot be kashered. We discussed how to kasher your stovetop and your warming drawer. So Baruch Hashem, we made some good progress, and as Hashem, we will continue this subject tomorrow. And let me just end with a very important joke. After all, if you can't have a joke in the beginning, at least a good one in the end will be very helpful. So a lot of ladies, they like to tell their husband, you know what? You know how you could help me? Get out of the house. That's the best help you could give me. Just get out from under my skin. I don't need any help. Stay out of my hair and come back at the end of the day. So a woman once told her husband, get out of the house and come back at the end of the day. But the poor guy didn't know what to do. He went to the Beis Medrash. He didn't even know how to hold up the sefer right. And then he went to the bakery and he drayed around. And after like 45 minutes, he came back into the house. And she says to him, I thought I told you, I don't need anything. Just stay out of the house. He says, the whole day you need me to help you? I can't help so much. Too much help I can't give. Okay, so let's continue. We're just going to say today 2 prakim of Tehillim. We're going to begin with chapter Sadi Aleph Yoshev B'Seisar El Yain.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.